Today's lesson is writing an argumentative essay. Hi, everybody. My name's Roger.
And I'm Hanny.
And, of course, today is our topic writing unit for the month of June. Hopefully, you're not too hot this summer and you're able to find a place inside somewhere with some air conditioning and you can sit down and write an essay. In this particular case, it's an argumentative essay. That means you take a position on a particular issue and you either support it or you are against it. And when you do that, you need to present good arguments.
好，我们这个月的主题是写作呢，是要撰写论说文。我们先补充一下 argument 这个名词它就有争论、论点、辩论的意思嘛。那么 argumentative 则是形容词去形容这个辩论的啊、争辩的。那我们这边就是用 writing an argumentative essay 去表达撰写论说文。那论说文这种文体的目的就是要阐述某一个议题，然后呢说服别人认同你的看法。你在写文章的时候必须要清楚表明自己的立场，立场是要明确一致的哦，不能前后不一样哦。那么陈述的时候要条理分明，你可以引用资料或者是举例来支持自己的论点。那除了提供这样客观事实的证据啊，你也可以从反方角度来进行论述，去增加你的说服力。好，那我们现在就要进行写作练习咯。好，那这篇写作呢会是关于涂鸦。我们一般会把涂鸦当作就是创作者他们可能在街头这个建筑外墙他们要去表达诉求啊，或者是进行批判所做的一些文字图画。那大家的看法都不一样，可能有些人觉得这是一种艺术啊，然后大家会有这个自由去表达自己的诉求。那有些人就觉得这是对公共财产的破坏，这是一种破坏行为，可能会损害市容等等。所以我们这边要写这个作文呢，就是要去表达你对涂鸦的看法，那就会文中会分成两段，一段是要说明你认为涂鸦它是艺术创作还是破坏公物呢？那么第二段就会说明你是否有可能找到双方都能接受的折中方法。
Indeed. So, of course, the topic for today is graffiti. Do you support it or are you against it? Do you think that it is a wonderful art form that we should appreciate more, or it's actually vandalism and damage to public and private property?
好，那我们现在开始写作，要练习第一段。那么第一段我们说就是要去表达说你认为涂鸦是艺术创作还是破坏公物。那我们看看课文范例它怎么写。
Okay, so here's the first part of our essay. This is what we're going to write. A particular work can be a masterpiece to some and an eyesore to others. That's why the topic of graffiti has sowed so much division. Some see it as a form of artistic expression, while others say it's vandalism, pure and simple. So yes, indeed, we're talking about a particular work of art. Some people might think it's a masterpiece, but someone might think it's an eyesore and terrible to look at. And of course, graffiti is very controversial. It has sowed a lot of division. Some people say, yes, it's a form of artistic expression, but others say, nope, it's damaging the environment. It's vandalism, pure and simple. That's all it is.
好，我们在写作这个引言的部分啊，像我们课文范例，他就去提到说一件作品呢，它可能对某些人来说是杰作，对某些人来说可能是很碍眼的东西。那这就是为什么涂鸦这个话题会引起这么多的分歧。我们也可以用到这个 controversial 这个字去表达说它是具有争议性的。那有些人就把它视为艺术表现形式，有些说它就是单纯这个纯粹是破坏行为，完全就是在破坏。好，那这边我们可以学到就是你可以用 some 点点点 while others 点点点去表达说有些人认为怎么样，而有些人认为怎么样，用这样的句型去呈现对比，引出两边的看法。然后呢，你还可以用到 see A as B 去表达将 A 视为 B， 所以你可以用 see it as a form of artistic expression 去表达说将它视为一种艺术表现形式，或者是你可以用反方的去说法去描述这样子。好，那现在换你写写看。我们也可以试着想说我们要怎么去开头呢？也许你可以写有些人认为涂鸦是一种可以美化市容的艺术形式，而有些人把它视为一种蓄意破坏公物还会降低社会安全性的行为，难怪呢它会引起激烈的争论。像这样也可以表达。那我们请 Roger 老师告诉我们，换你写写看，也许可以怎么说。
Yep, this is what you might write. Some see graffiti as an art form that can beautify urban neighborhoods, while others see it as vandalism that damages property and reduces community safety. It's no wonder then that graffiti has caused some heated disagreements. Now, notice here, this paragraph does not actually say what your position on graffiti is. It's just an introduction to this particular topic, and it tells us that graffiti is controversial. Some think it beautifies blighted urban neighborhoods. It makes them look better, but others think it's damaging property and causes things to not be so safe with all these kids running around with spray paint cans and stuff like that, and they stay up until like 1 or 2 in the morning to do this kind of stuff. So it's no wonder, it's not surprising that there are lots of arguments and disagreements concerning graffiti.
好，那我们刚刚就是用一段引言去引出说，对于涂鸦这个议题是有很大的分歧的，引出两派的看法。那我们现在接着就要提出个人的立场，你是支持还是反对呢？然后接着我们要举例说明。那我们就来看看课文范例它怎么写。
Okay, so here's what we're going to say. I personally consider graffiti to be deserving of the status of art. After all, many examples of graffiti require great technical skill and imagination to execute. Just look at the early graffiti of Keith Haring and Shepard Fairey. The bright colors, bold shapes, and provocative social messages often associated with graffiti can also add life to dull cities. So in this particular case, we are supporting graffiti. We are in favor of it. We're saying it deserves the status of art. It is to be considered art. And we've got lots of examples of graffiti that is actually well done. It's not just people painting sloppy letters on walls, which does happen, but sometimes, of course, graffiti artists take a long time to make a really great piece. And we've got some examples here from Keith Haring and Shepard Fairey. They, of course, were some early pioneers in graffiti. And we've got bold colors, or bright colors, I should say, bold shapes. We've got great lettering that people can't really read. And we've got provocative social messages that let us know what's going on in the world. And they can add life to otherwise dull and boring cities.
好，我们这边课文范例他就开始提出个人的立场是要表达支持的，他就是提到说我个人认为涂鸦应该获得艺术地位，所以我们这边先表明了立场你是支持的，然后接着呢他就去举了艺术家的例子，然后也去说明呢像这些跟涂鸦相关的那种鲜艳色彩啊、大胆的图形啊，还有具有挑衅意味的这种社会讯息，也可以为这个枯燥的城市注入生命力，所以这边举例说明去表达立场。那我们如果是换你写写看，如果你要表达反对的话怎么办呢？我们刚刚用 I personally consider 点点点点点去表达我个人认为怎么样，那你也可以用 I personally oppose 点点点去表达我个人反对什么什么。所以也许你可以写说我个人反对涂鸦，因为它不但大量耗费资源，还会产生这种敌对啊、不安的感觉。那举例来说，像这些地主啊、建筑物的这个屋主或是产权所有人，他们可能要花很多钱来除掉这些他们不想要的涂鸦。那同时那些具有这种挑衅意味的政治社会讯息有可能会引起愤怒啊，可能是害怕、担心等等的。那我们从这个角度来写写看，换你写写看，老师我们可以怎么说？
Okay, this is what you might write if you oppose graffiti. So you could say, I personally oppose graffiti because it's a costly drain on resources and can generate feelings of hostility and insecurity. For example, a property owner might spend thousands of dollars removing unwanted graffiti, while provocative political and social messages can create anger or even fear in those with different viewpoints. So, of course, here you're saying you're against graffiti, you oppose it, and you're saying it's a costly drain on resources. We need to spend public money to clean this stuff up. And then we've got hostility and insecurity if people see this stuff and they think, those kids, they're painting that graffiti all the time and ruining everything. And we've got some examples here. If somebody owns a property, they may need to spend lots of money to remove that graffiti that is unwanted. And then sometimes the graffiti comes with those provocative political and social messages. If something's provocative, it usually creates a negative reaction in other people. You may not like that point of view. And indeed, that is a problem with graffiti in some instances.
好，那我们现在表明个人立场之后呢，我们接下来呢，也许你可以去提出反方的论点，去提出他们的立场，然后你再加以一一反驳，这样子你的说法论点就更站得住脚，对不对？就更令人有信服力，这样子。好，那我们接下来看看课文范例，他就试着提出反对立场跟论点了。我们看看课文怎么写。
Okay, so here's what we're going to say. Still, it can't be denied that not everyone appreciates having their building or neighborhood covered in spray paint without their approval. Now remember, this is the supporting position, someone who thinks graffiti is a work of art, but still, you have to admit there are some problems with this. It can't be denied. We must confess, we must admit that not everybody appreciates graffiti. Their building or their neighborhood might be covered with pretty terrible works of graffiti. If you look around the city, of course, sometimes you can see some graffiti that's very swabe-in. It's just kind of casual. It's not really thought out, and it can be an eyesore.
好，我们来看看，当你的立场是支持的，可是你现在要提出相反的论点。那课文它是写说，尽管如此，不可否认的是，并不是每个人都乐于见到他们的建筑物或是社区在未经许可的情况下被喷漆覆盖。那这边就可以用到 It can't be denied that 点点点去表达 that 子句所说的内容呢是不可否认，是毋庸置疑的。好，那现在如果我们本身是持反对的立场，那我们要去提到说，他们相反就是支持的人，他们是什么看法？也许你可以这样写说，尽管如此，反对涂鸦的人也必须认知到，有些人认为涂鸦有许多不同的优点，甚至是能盖过缺点，好像能合理化那个缺点一样。那也有些人就会去争论说，这可以让这个艺术家可以在公共空间来表达自己，而不是局限于画廊、美术馆、博物馆等等，像这样子去举出相反的论点。那我们请 Roger 老师告诉我们，换你写写看可以怎么说。
Okay, so here's what you might write. And you do not support graffiti, you're against it, but still you need to concede some points about graffiti. It says here, nonetheless, or still, opponents of graffiti have to acknowledge that some see it as having various positives that justify its negatives. So indeed, people who are against graffiti still need to admit, they need to acknowledge that, some people think graffiti is positive, and of course, the negatives are worth it when you consider the positive, like great art form and great use of paint and lettering and form and stuff like that. A lot of them surely are works of art. And it continues here. For example, some argue that it allows artists to express themselves in public spaces rather than being limited to galleries and museums. So yes, some people may say that, hey, these artists can go right out and find a bare wall somewhere and go ahead and express themselves instead of waiting to get an offer for an exhibition at an art museum or gallery. In order to do that, sometimes you really need some good connections.
好，那我们回到刚刚课文范例，我们是支持的，可是你又提出说，确实不是每个人都喜欢说不经过允许的状况下，他们的建筑物社区就被这样喷漆嘛。那现在你要去反驳这个东西咯，所以像课文范例，我们看看他是怎么提出反方意见来反驳的。
Okay, so here's the supporting position again. But it would be senseless for a graffiti artist to seek prior consent from the public, as their works would no longer be considered graffiti, but rather commissioned art. So yes, graffiti by itself is just done freely. You don't have to wait for somebody to pay you or give you permission. If they do, then that would be commissioned art, and therefore it's no longer really graffiti. There's a certain radical aspect to graffiti that you go out at night and you paint these things without people noticing and you get away with it.
好，那我们现在在针对反方提出反驳，像课文范例他就提到说，但是对涂鸦艺术家来说，如果你是事先向大众来征求同意，这就没有意义啦，因为他们的作品就不再被视为涂鸦，没有那种激进自由创作的那种感觉，而就变成了委托艺术，变 变成 commissioned art， 也就是说，那我经过你的允许我才能画，我才能涂的话，这样我还是自由创作吗？好，那我们再回到刚刚的这个反对涂鸦的这个意见呢，就有提到说，有些人是争论说，这让艺术家可以在公共空间表达自己，而不是局限在那些美术馆啊、博物馆啊、画廊等等的。那现在我们要再针对这个议题去反驳，那我们看看这个换你写写看，你就可以也许提到说，可是那些地主啊，那些产权所有人，他们的权益也应该要纳入考量并受到尊重啊，这是应该要去考虑到的东西耶。那我们请 Roger 老师告诉我们，换你写写看可以怎么说。
Yep, here's how you may write it. However, the rights of property owners should also be taken into consideration and respected. Indeed, we do need to respect those property owners.When they don't want graffiti painted on their walls, they shouldn't have to put up with that.
没错，好，那我们最后要进入结论，那就是要针对涂鸦这项议题再度提出你的看法。那我们先来看看课文范例它怎么写。
Yep, and here's what we're going to say. Indeed, there is no clear solution to the question of graffiti. Yes, indeed, it's hard to come to some kind of consensus.or some kind of solution to this problem. It's just very difficult to reach some kind of compromise.
好，这边他写到说，确实涂鸦问题并没有明确的解决方法，好像很难找到共识这样子。那换你写写看，也许你就可以真的想出一个似乎可以解决的方法，可行的方法。假设你就说，我认为一个可能的折中方法就是划定一个区域，让涂鸦艺术家能够呢合法的创作去表达自我，可能像是在地下道啊，或者是废弃的建筑物，这样也同时可以美化都市环境嘛。好，那我们请 Roger 老师告诉我们，换你写写看可以怎么说。
This is what you might write. I think one possible compromise would be to designate specific areas where graffiti artists could express themselves legally, such as underpasses or abandoned buildings. This could allow urban environments to be beautified.All right, let's move on now to part 2 and look at the actual essay we're presenting to you today. The title is Graffiti, Where Do We Draw the Line? Now, that's a cute title because if you draw a line, you're actually producing art, but it also means you're setting limits. For example, I like the fact that my kids can have their freedom, but I draw the line at them staying out past 10 p.m. at night.
好，那我们这边看到标题，它就说 Graffiti, where do we draw the line? Graffiti 我们知道就是涂鸦嘛，那么 draw the line 这边还蛮有意思，就是你涂鸦不是也是关于这样画线条吗？但是 draw the line 它除了指这种设线啊、划定底线，它这边还可以去搭配这个 at 加上名词或动名词去表达说坚决拒绝或是无法容许。就像 Roger 老师刚刚提到说，他很乐于给孩子自由，可是呢，要设定这个底线，就是说，例如说有宵禁啊，不能超过10点回家之类的，所以 draw the line 就可以表达设定划线啊，坚决拒绝的那种意思。
Right, where do we compromise? And here in the first paragraph it says, artistic value is largely a matter of opinion. A particular work can be a masterpiece to some and an eyesore to others. Indeed, it's up to the individual to decide whether a work of art is good or if it's bad. That's why the topic of graffiti has sowed so much division. It has caused so much controversy. Some see it as a form of artistic expression, while others say it's vandalism, pure and simple. Yes, indeed, it's damaging public and private property, and that's all there is to it. I personally consider graffiti to be deserving of the status of art. After all, many examples of graffiti require great technical skill and imagination to execute. Indeed, if you've seen some really fine works of graffiti, you know that it probably took the artist several hours to produce that work of art. So, yes, graffiti can be deserving of the status of art. And yes, indeed, they require lots of technical skill and imagination to execute, to carry them out.
好，我们看到这边呢，他说 artistic value is largely a matter of opinion。这个 be a matter of opinion 就是表达见仁见智，也就是说这个艺术价值是见仁见智，看法是因人而异的。那补充一下，他还用到这边一个 eyesore， 就是指碍眼的东西、难看的东西，感觉你看了眼睛都会痛的那种。那补充一下，如果是 eye candy， 则是表达赏心悦目的人或是物，不过它也可以用来表达可能是虚有其表的人啊，或是华而不实的 的事物。然后再补充一下 vandalism 它是表达这种蓄意破坏公物的行为。那如果是 vandal 这个名词就可以用来表达故意破坏他人财产的人。
Okay, so we've got some examples here of some early graffiti. Just look at the early graffiti of Keith Haring and Shepard Fairey, both of whom eventually became well-established artists. So in the beginning, yes, they were doing graffiti, but they were recognized later, and they became well-established, which means they were recognized by people, they could put on exhibitions, and they could make a lot of money. And the bright colors, bold shapes, and provocative social messages often associated with graffiti can also add life to dull cities. Indeed, graffiti does feature lots of bright colors and those bold shapes and those really cool letters. We've also got provocative social messages that might cause conflict or controversy because they might support some kind of political position or be against another one. And of course, they can add life to cities which are otherwise quite dull. And sometimes cities have those old buildings that are just sitting there. Yes, indeed, we should just go ahead and paint graffiti on them. And the works of Banksy, for example, have even attracted tourists from all over the world. Yes, indeed, graffiti can attract tourist dollars.
好，那我们再看到这边，只要补充一个字，就是 establish， 它当动词有这种建立的意思。可是在这边我们看到它是 established， 它是当形容词去形容是已被认可的、被承认的或是既定的、著名的，我们就可以用 well established 去描述说它已经是被大家所接受的，是信誉卓著的这样子。
Okay, here's the next paragraph. It says, Still, it can't be denied that not everyone appreciates having their building or neighborhood covered in spray paint without their approval. Indeed, so even though you support graffiti and you think it's really great, you still need to admit, you cannot deny, that not everyone appreciates graffiti. They don't want their buildings covered with spray paint, and they don't want to let them do that without saying they can. But it would be senseless for a graffiti artist to seek prior consent from the public. If something's senseless, of course, it doesn't make any sense. Prior consent means getting permission from people first, and that's kind of not in the spirit of graffiti. And yes, indeed, their works would no longer be considered graffiti, but rather commissioned art, or a work of art that someone is going to pay you to do. That's what a commission is. Of course, those of you who work in sales all know what a commission is. And indeed, there is no clear solution to the question of graffiti. Indeed, it remains controversial.
好，最后补充一下，我们说 senseless， 有时候我们说这个人很没有 sense， 所以你应该猜得到说 senseless 它其实就可以描述是不明智的，或者是它这边可以描述是没有意义的。那么 commissioned 它其实是用 commission 的过去分词来当形容词去描述委托的。那么 commission 是个动词，它可以表达说正式委托或是委托做或是委任的那种意思。
All right, that wraps things up for this month's edition of Topic Writing. Maybe you guys can all write an essay concerning graffiti, whether you support it or whether you're against it. I like graffiti myself, but I can recognize that it can be controversial and it does cause damage to public spaces. From all of us here at All+ Interactive English, my name is Roger.
And I'm Hanny.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.